So this is the week of Breeders Cup 41 out at Del Mar, where the surf meets the turf and where a lot of my bets are going to meet the garbage can undeniably this weekend. But I'm looking forward to it. Full fields, lots of international action. We're going to talk to my buddy Kev Humphreys in a little bit to get into all the Euros. Really, really good insight. So don't miss that. You know, if you're betting at all this weekend, definitely worth a watch. So John and I are just going to touch really quickly on a few of the things that intrigue us just from an overview of the Breeders' Cup. It's obviously a phenomenal 2 days of racing. We've got 5 Breeders' Cup races on Friday, and we've got 9 on Saturday, 14 in total. Obviously, John's got the home team interest with 3 horses on Friday. The only West Point affiliated horse that we've got this weekend is Vava. That's why I won't be out there because we only have the one horse running, but she's obviously got a big shot in the filly and mare sprint, so that'll be the sentimental favorite for me. But John, the one thing that stuck out to me, and there's a lot, but the one thing that stuck out to me that we didn't really touch on with Kev is Next actually going for the Classic. Now, he drew 14, so they weren't rewarded for their boldness, unfortunately. But he's got enough speed that I think, you know, it's a long run to the first turn. I think he can get into a decent spot. We'll see how quick the pace is. I got to give them a shout because, you know, we were clowning the Next connections for not challenging him this year and just sticking in those marathon races, but there's really no more marathon races left. Like, this is the time to go for it. They pondered going in the turf. They're going to keep him on dirt, which I think is the right call. Like, as you're stepping up in class, I don't think you want to add another variable to throw at him. If he wins this race or even runs well, that opens so many more doors for him going forward. He is a gelding, so I assume he's going to be back as a 7-year-old. He seems like he's as good as ever. So I want to give a hat tip to the connections of Next for going in this race. You know, the Classic itself, I think, is a pretty solid renewal. It's not like an all-time great renewal, but I do think, you know, with the international flavor that you have from City of Troy and Forever Young, you got some 3-year-olds who are on the rise. Arthur's Ride is capable of a really big race, even though he's stunk in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. John, you don't have to talk about the Classic. You can touch on anything I said, or you can just give me what you're looking forward to the most outside of your horses. We know you're going to be there and handing out the trophy and hopefully accepting a trophy. But what else stuck out to you about the Breeders' Cup cards?
Well, I do want to jump on the bandwagon when you're talking about the Classic, and you know, I was remiss in kind of, you know, saying it's a mediocre field. Where are all the Cowboys gone? Where are all our good 3-year-olds? Where are all our good local horses? And I have to tell you, Joe, going through the race, is it a spectacular race top to bottom? No. But is it a good betting race? Absolutely. I mean, you can make a case for a lot of horses in here with, you know, Forever Young, who impressed when he came here. Mixto won last time out at that racetrack on the Pacific Classic. Does he bounce? Senior Buscador, it seems like he's in this race. They should rename the race the Senior Buscador Classic because it seems like he's in here or gunning for it every year. You have Fierceness. Which Fierceness is going to show up in this race? I don't know. But if the good one shows up, then it's a no-brainer. Tapit Trice, I think, is a sneaky long shot, Joe. You love Sierra Leone. I'm going to bet against him this time. Yeah. For those of you who watch on a regular basis, you know that I keep burning money betting on Sierra Leone. Arthur's Ride, I think, is kind of an underdog long shot race, dark horse that could surprise. I think he bounced last time in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and he's, you know, other than the fact that he's in the 12 hole, he's a horse that also could surprise. And then Next, look, they've been managing him like a champ, you know, against easier competition. You know, he's been like 1-10 in every single race of these run this year, you know, especially in the longer races. You can make a case that they've dodged some of the big guns, but I don't know if there are big guns that go in the 1.5-mile races like the Greenwood Cap and races like that. Being in the outside isn't going to help him at all. But you know, I kudos to the owner and the trainer for stepping him up and putting him in this position. The one race that I thought was really intriguing, Joe, on Friday, actually isn't one that we're in, isn't one that we talked about. But to me, the Juvenile, I think you can make a case for 8 out of the 10 horses in this race. From East Avenue, who's undefeated, you know, a homebred of Godolphin, and what a year they're having. If they're not breeder of the year or owner of the year, then I don't know who should be. Getaway Car, who won 2 races there. Ferociousness. Jonathan's Way, who, on top of the fact that he's undefeated, how about this tidbit that they showed yesterday when on the post position draw, that the owner and trainer survived a plane crash, Joe. survived a plane crash. I'm assuming it was
Wow.
together. I'm assuming it wasn't like each of them were in a plane and they almost crashed, but they survived the plane crash and then stepped up and bought this Vekoma for $290,000 as a weanling, and now he's one of the favorites in this race. Citizen Bull, Gaming, typical Baffert horses that have speed and are talented. Shin Believe, who was an $800,000 Constitution, and the only start of his life, Joe, the only start of his career was a 9-furlong maiden race. When's the last time you saw that? A first-time starter winning 9 furlongs and then coming here. And then Chancer McPatrick, who's undefeated in 3 starts, and was a $725,000 2-year-old. So, I mean, you can dive deep into that race and legitimately pick 8 out of 10 horses, I think, in this race that have a good to really good chance. This to me is an all bet, Joe, and you're the gambler. So, did you look at this race yet? And if so, how do you delineate who you bet on?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go all just because I don't trust the California horses quite as much. I think the better shots are on the East Coast. Shin Believe is really interesting. We're starting to see not just the Japanese bred horses, but some of the horses that they're coming over and buying at our sales now come to compete in the Breeders' Cup, because this is an $800,000 son of Constitution who was bought at the OBS March sale. We talked about Akoro Sig, who's going to be the favorite in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. $250,000 son of Twirling Candy, also bought at OBS March. So it's not just the Japanese breeding program that's getting them into these big spots. They're starting to now take our lunch in terms of the sales and then come maybe take our lunch in the Breeders' Cup. So that's really interesting. Who knows what to do with him, but I wouldn't be shocked if he factored. I think East Avenue is a bet against, and he's been brilliant in his first 2 races. He crushed them in the Breeders' Futurity, looked amazing. Problem is he's on the rail and there's a lot of speed to his outside. And this is the kind of race with a lot of horses stretching out, a lot of lightly raced horses who've only run towards the front, where there could be some real action on the front end. And that's why I prefer Jonathan's Way. Just he's 9-2 morning line. East Avenue's 5-2. At those prices, I 100% prefer Jonathan's Way, just because you go back and you look at his debut. He broke terribly, and it didn't matter. He just made that huge run and blew him away in the stretch. Then he had the versatility to go to the front in the Iroquois, fight off some other horses, and keep going. So to me, he's the horse to beat, even though East Avenue is a little bit faster on figures. Chancer McPatrick obviously has to be talked about because he's 3 for 3. He has that big closing kick that you don't often see from 2-year-olds. But the Del Mar dirt track has not played kindly to speed so far this year. Even if you do get a little bit of a pace meltdown, is it going to be enough to get him there at what's likely a short price? I lean towards Jonathan's Way, excuse me. I think Citizen Bull is interesting, who you mentioned from Bob Baffert. But yeah, this is a very, very fascinating race, and a lot of horses that I think we could see in the Derby. Obviously you usually get participation from the Juvenile to the Derby, but I think there's a lot in particular in this renewal that we're going to see on the first Saturday in May.
No question about it. And when we ran against Jonathan's Way with Sandman in the Iroquois, I remember being like, oh my God, who is that horse? I can't believe how impressive he was, especially the way that he did it. Because even that race, I know he was like the lukewarm favorite with Owen Almighty and Sandman. And I think there was another horse that was like 4-1. It was a tough field for an early 2-year-old prep race in essence. So yeah, I can see why you'd like Jonathan's Way as well. But please, I interrupted you. What race are you looking forward to?
No, I mean, listen, the Classic is super fascinating to me, even if it's not the highest quality field that we've ever had. I think, the Juvenile Turf, we're going to talk about it with Kev in a little bit, is a wide open race. Filly and Mare Sprint, obviously, for sentimental reasons. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the Juvenile is one of the more interesting races of the year. And, I'm not usually a future bettor, but if you do like a horse in the Kentucky Derby future wager, I think now is the time to get down on them if they're in this race, because the odds are going to shift so much after this race is over that I think that's the time to get in, before these major prep races where you think there's going to be a big shift. But yeah, who knows? I agree. It's a race you definitely want to spread in.